Hey there, and welcome to Sound Tips. We're continuing to build upon the foundation that we're setting as we talk about some of the basics of sound, and as we continue to move forward, we'll get more complex. I want to thank you for being a part of the videos that I'm doing, and a couple of favors I'd like to ask of you. If you would, go down and subscribe to my channel so that you can continue to see these. Also, number two, I would love it if you would share this with somebody that you know. Share the link with a sound person or your pastor or music minister or even part of your band that you think might benefit from learning a little bit more how to be a better sound person, or the foundations of sound that maybe you think they might benefit from. So do me a favor and do that. We're going to jump right in today, and we're going to talk about microphones, and particularly we're going to be talking about polar patterns or pickup patterns of microphones. There's a whole lot of different things that we can talk about microphones, and we will do that as moving forward. But today, that's what we want to talk about, is the different types of polar patterns. And really, we're going to talk about three main polar patterns today. The three are omnidirectional, cardioid, and supercardioid. And so we're just going to cover those three. There's a few others that you may run across or you may have heard of, but those are the three main types. So those are the three that I want to talk about today. So let's jump right in. We're going to go to the whiteboard, and we're going to start with omnidirectional microphone. So let's jump right in the whiteboard. Omnidirectional is just like it sounds. So the microphone picks up in every direction. So we're going to just draw our microphone here. If this is our microphone, and this is the cord coming out and going wherever. An omnidirectional microphone, if you would imagine this being three-dimensional, but it picks up equally everywhere around. So kind of like a ball, omnidirectional picks up every direction around the microphone equally. From no matter where the sound is coming into it, it picks it up. So now that I've shown you what an omnidirectional pickup pattern looks like, when would you want to use something like that? You know now that it picks up in every direction. Why is that useful, or when is that useful? The main place that you see that is either on like a lapel or lavalier mic, or a headset microphone in live sound. Now there are other applications that you might use it in, other types of sound, but particularly for live sound, that's what you're going to use it for. The drawback of an omnidirectional microphone is because it picks up everywhere kind of equally, it's really susceptible to feedback through loudspeakers if you have floor monitors or your main loudspeaker system or things like that. So because it's picking up that from everywhere, there's no way to direct where you're going to pick up from to help to kind of alleviate that. So that's the biggest drawback to that, but there are a couple of main kind of advantages to a omnidirectional microphone. You can place it in any direction, obviously. So on a lapel microphone, which you don't see as much anymore, but some of you still probably use one, and they're really a great tool, but they can be a little bit tricky to get to work because you're kind of fighting that sound coming from everywhere thing. So the drawback is if you're trying to use one and you do have a lot of sound going on, so if you're trying to use one and there's music playing, or you've got things coming from different directions, it's going to be hard to pick up just the source for that. Another drawback is it is going to be susceptible to feedback. An advantage is I can point it anywhere that I want to point it. And so it doesn't matter if it's up, down, sideways, so it gives me a lot of flexibility. And when you think of a head-worn microphone, the microphone is actually pointing this way, pointing out away from the source, which would be a microphone or a mouth. And so you've got that. The omnidirectional allows that microphone to still be effective, picking up your voice, even though it's not directly pointed at your mouth. That's an omnidirectional microphone. A lot of feedback issues potentially, but a lot of flexibility. And then the kind of third advantage is as you get closer, there's a thing called proximity effect, and you're not as as susceptible to that. So a proximity effect essentially as a microphone gets closer to the source, your mouth or whatever it is, there's more bass, more stimulus, the pops and things like that that you have to contend with, and you can kind of alleviate that with closer. So that's omnidirectional. The second one we're going to look at is cardioid. So let's go back to the whiteboard and take a look at cardioid microphones. Cardioid microphone, if this is our microphone again, and the cord goes down. A cardioid microphone, same idea. It has a pattern that picks up like, well, that's a terrible picture. If you imagine that it would be symmetrical, it picks up like this. So anything coming into the microphone from these directions are going to pick up, but anything that's trying to come into the microphone from the back side is going to be significantly quieter. And again, imagine that this is a semi-spherical, so anything from any direction around the back side is going to be attenuated or quieter, but anything on the front, regardless of if it comes from here or here, is going to have pretty much the same volume and sound. So that's cardioid microphones, how they kind of look, their pickup pattern. Where is a cardioid microphone useful? Well, it doesn't pick anything up from the back side of the microphone. So when you think about a microphone that you're pointing at a source, either at your voice or at an instrument, or something like that, it's going to be less susceptible to picking up the sound that's going around it. So a drum set's a great place to use a cardioid microphone because it's rejecting everything from the back side. So you put it on the drum that you want to mic, and it's not going to pick up as much cymbals. Now it will some, but or outside things. A vocalist is great because you don't want to hear necessarily everything that's going on around. You just want to hear the voice of that vocalist, and so a cardioid microphone is a good choice. A couple of things I want to point out when you looked at the picture. You notice that the majority of the kind of dead sound is on the back side of the microphone. So if I'm using a floor monitor, I want that floor monitor to be straight in front of me, straight down right in front of me, and not off to the sides. Because off on the sides, there's another microphone for that, but off on the sides, it's getting into the side of the pickup pattern of that microphone where you want it in the most dead spot that you can possibly get it. So cardioid microphone is also useful if you've got somebody who doesn't necessarily have the best microphone technique. And so they can, if they're moving it around or they're not straight in their mouth, that's useful. It also, beside the third type that we're going to talk about in just a minute, has less proximity. Now it has more proximity effect than the first type, the omnidirectional, but it has less than a supercardioid we're going to talk about in just a minute. So the closer you get, it still does have, it's going to get more bass. It's going to be, obviously it's going to be louder. Any microphone you get closer is going to be louder. So you'll have somebody that might say, well, get right into the microphone. That's because they're not getting enough out of you. And it could be because they're using the wrong microphone for the job. Or it could be just because you're really quiet and you really do need to sing louder. And I've seen that happen. But most of the time, a cardioid microphone is really a pretty good choice, and the probably most popular microphone in the world is a Shure SM58, and it's for vocals, and it's a cardioid pickup pattern. Good workhorse microphone to use. So we've got omnidirectional, we've got cardioid. The third type, main type that we're going to talk about is, I mentioned it earlier, supercardioid. So let's go to the whiteboard again and let's talk about the pickup pattern of a supercardioid microphone. Supercardioid, we'll draw our microphone again. It's a goofy looking microphone and our cord. And a supercardioid is similar to cardioid, but it's a little bit narrower up the sides. So it attenuates more on the sides than it does on the, so it's quieter here. If you imagine this is full volume, it's quieter along the sides. A big attenuation on the back side, but it has a little lobe. So if you were to talk or to to put a signal straight into the back, it's going to be louder again. But if I come in from this side here, it's going to be significantly quieter. Same thing from here. It's not as loud from here as it is if I come from straight onto the microphone. It's attenuated a little bit on the sides. So if you can imagine, big sound right in here in the front, little sound on the sides, a little bigger sound, but not as much. It's still attenuated quite a bit, and then big sound again from the bottom. So now you've seen what a supercardioid pickup pattern looks like. If you can imagine trying to use that on a drum set where you're putting it on, say, like a tom drum, and there's a cymbal right overhead of it, and it's got that node that's picking up behind the microphone. That's probably not the best choice. You probably want to use a cardioid pickup pattern for that instance, so you can kind of see. But a supercardioid is really a great choice for vocals, particularly a singer or a worship leader or somebody like that who has a lot of sound around them, but you really want to focus more on just their sound and pick up less of what's going on around them. Because it rejects so much from the sides, there's not going to be as much, the drum kit right beside them, or the electric player if your amps are on stage, or anything like that, the acoustic guitar if they're playing an acoustic guitar. The microphone's going to pick up less of that. So great microphone to use in that situation. A couple of things with if you're using floor monitors, when I mentioned cardioid, you don't want to be off to the sides. With a supercardioid, you actually don't want to be straight on, because remember, it's got that node, same thing as the cymbal example. So you don't want the monitor to be straight in front of your vocalist. You do want it to be off 30 to 45 degrees. It may vary a little bit depending on the microphone. But a good rule of thumb is I usually try to go 30 to 45 degrees off to the side from the center so that it's down, not straight ahead. And that's going to help reject feedback and noise coming back from the monitor on that. It is susceptible, the most susceptible to that proximity effect. So if you've got somebody who really likes to get into the microphone and their voice gets a little boomy, or their voice gets a little muffled or hard to understand, that may be because you're trying to use a supercardioid microphone with a vocalist who's too close to the microphone. So a couple of things you can do. You can back them off of the microphone a little bit. Of course, then again, the closer you are, the louder it's going to be. But you can try backing them off, or you're just going to have to utilize a cardioid microphone for that. So, but those are some kind of real quick practical things that you can use microphones for, the three different main kinds: omnidirectional, cardioid, and supercardioid. And if you have any questions or any thoughts to add, put them down in the comments below. I'd love to have a dialogue with you as we continue this journey to being a better sound person. So thanks again for coming along, and I hope that you'll subscribe. I hope that you'll tell others about the video, and I hope to see you next week.